The last video, we see that Hoojin gets a green elixir, a gift from the courageous Lion King. This open beta bonus would last for 10 minutes, temporarily increasing strength by 6. Hoojin couldn't believe he had received 2 open beta bonuses, and this elixir increased his strength by 6. Typically, when a player's level increases, they gain 2 stat bonuses. Using this elixir was equivalent to increasing his strength by 3 levels. Hoojin's confidence grew, knowing that he now had enough strength to fight the goblins. The courageous Lion King awaited his courage, signaling Hoojin to engage in battle. However, Hoojin hesitated, unwilling to blindly follow the Guardian's reckless demands. Only a few seconds remained before the attack ended, and he knew he could survive by avoiding any impulsive actions. Just as he prepared to ride out the remaining moments, Hoojin was startled when the courageous Lion King initiated an exchange with the intermediate administrator. The surrounding environment warped, and Senya reappeared before him, in accordance with the courageous Lion King's request. She would change the tutorial field. Hoojin was irritated that the Lion King had involved her. Among the many guardians, the courageous Lion King was infamous for his love of reckless courage, challenges, and the passion of seemingly hopeless players. Yet, he was also a cruel being who derived enjoyment from watching players suffer while exhibiting foolish bravery. Hoojin understood that what the Lion King truly desired was the removal of the conditional safe zone. Senya then informed him that the exchange with the courageous Lion King had been finalized, and the conditional safe zone would be removed in 30 seconds. Hoojin, however, quickly called out to her, asking if the Guardian insisted on changing the scenario. If so, shouldn't there be a reward for the player involved? Senya was taken aback by his audacity, but Hoojin pressed on, arguing that she couldn't simply disregard the rules, especially when his life was on the line. Ignoring the commandments would be a violation. Senya was visibly shocked, as was the nameless observer, though the courageous Lion King remained silent. Senya questioned whether he had just mentioned the commandments. Hoojin confirmed that he had, explaining that his complaint was not unreasonable given the life-threatening situation he was in. He knew why they were so surprised. After all, the original laws and commandments weren't revealed until 7 years after the tutorial. Senya demanded to know how he knew about the commandments, but Hoojin brushed it off, stating that players didn't need to explain their methods. Senya fell silent, realizing they had wasted 10 seconds of the safe zone's time. Hoojin insisted she compensate him for that lost time as well. Admitting that he was right, Senya extended the safe zone duration by 10 seconds and offered further compensation for the scenario change. She provided him with high-quality lubricant, useful for sharpening blades and other tasks, and a rusty iron sword with an attack power ranging from 2 to 5. Hoojin happily accepted the items, all gained thanks to his knowledge of the commandments. With the first wave of goblins over, the goblins, disoriented by the altered environment, abandoned the bus and fled. Hoojin was relieved, having survived without needing to use the conditional safe zone or engage in battle. The courageous Lion King was undoubtedly disappointed, but Hoojin couldn't care less. His relief, however, was short-lived when he saw the number of corpses scattered around him. Reflexively, he wanted to vomit, but he managed to suppress the urge. He had to stay alert if he wanted to survive. The tutorial was like a week in hell, and if Hoojin hoped to make it through, he needed water and food above all else. His immediate goal was to reach a convenience store about 300 meters away. Having studied the area for 3 years, he remembered it well and knew he had to move quickly. Danger lurked everywhere, and he couldn't afford to linger. As he made his way toward the store, the chaos in the city became all too clear. He heard people calling for help, their voices filled with desperation, though the fog obscured his view. Navigating the area was difficult, and Hoojin had to remain cautious, avoiding the deterrents in his path. Just as he pressed on, he noticed a hand lying on the road and narrowly avoided stepping on it. That's when he heard a faint cry for help. Turning toward the sound, Hoojin realized it came from the same person whose hand he had nearly trampled. The individual was trapped under a car, pleading with him for assistance, and looked more closely at the person's situation. He was shocked to see a goblin beside her. Confused, he thought that they should have disappeared after the first wave. Was this some kind of error? As the goblin prepared to cut off the person's leg, she begged Hoojin to save her. He was startled by the girl's state. Although the goblin was about to harm her, she wasn't injured at all. He realized she must have received the open beta bonus. Instead of running, she screamed in fear, while the goblin seemed entirely absorbed in her. Hoojin wondered if this was what people called talent. Suddenly, Senya appeared behind him, saying, "The target is a baby goblin. Even so, a level 1 player would have difficulty dealing with it." Hoojin paused to consider this. If Senya was right, then this was even more impressive. The girl, in her panic, hadn't realized her innate talent as a tanker was immeasurable. Even the Fist King Yuyeon-so couldn't have done this at level 1. If he left her here, more goblins would come, and she would surely die. He had to make a decision. Hoojin opened his inventory and took out his sword. He knew this place better than anyone, thanks to his theoretical and virtual dungeon experience. The administrator had said level 1 players would struggle to defeat baby goblins, which was true in direct combat. But since there was only one goblin, and it wasn't even fighting back, the warning lost its meaning. He simply needed to target the weak spot and stab it. Fortunately, Hoojin's plan worked without any problems. The girl was surprised to see him kill the goblin, and Hoojin received a notification about earning EXP from the kill. He turned to the girl and told her to get up, warning her that she would be left behind if she didn't follow him properly. The girl stood and quickly followed him. After walking for a while, they finally reached the convenience store. Once inside, Hoojin told the girl not to open the door under any circumstances. She remained silent, and Hoojin emphasized again that no matter what, she should not open it. Though she was filled with fear, Hoojin understood it was only natural in this horrific tutorial. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, signaling the start of the second goblin attack. Hujin asked if she saw the notification too, and she replied, yes. Hujin then asked what it said. Shakili, she answered that the attack was about to begin, and that a safe zone was being created. Satisfied, Hujin realized this girl had immense talent. Normally, only the convenience store could be confirmed as a safe zone in the second wave, but a talented player like her could even see that the hospital was a safe zone too. However, Hujin was puzzled as to why he could also see the hospital as a safe zone. Another system notification appeared, announcing the second wave had begun. Hujin decided to prioritize their safety. He once again stressed that if she hesitated, she should sit down and take her eyes off the door. As the safe zone was created, the primordial fog rose, and they could see the chaos outside. Goblins rampaged through the city, killing citizens mercilessly. Those outside the convenience store noticed it was a safe zone and banged on the door, begging Hujin to let them in. Their numbers increased and they cursed Hujin for his silence, while the girl did her best to avoid their pleas. Hujin, witnessing their desperate struggle, was filled with turmoil. He knew that opening the door would cause the safe zone to vanish, dooming them all. As they watched helplessly, goblins slaughtered the citizens outside. Hujin braced himself against the screams. He would etch this moment into his memory, the system that orchestrated this nightmare, and the guardians who watched everything like it was a game. He vowed to repay them. 6 hours later, the situation calmed. Hujin and the girl sat together, recovering from the ordeal. The girl thanked him and introduced herself as Kang Sunhwa, 14 years old. She was grateful to have met him that morning, but Hujin cut her off, telling her that he didn't help her out of kindness. He wasn't sure if she would survive until the end. Sunhwa begged him not to abandon her, wondering if she had done something wrong. Realizing his words were too harsh, Hujin clarified that he couldn't guarantee her safety throughout the entire tutorial. Keeping himself alive was already difficult, but as long as her presence didn't endanger him, he wouldn't abandon her. Hujin then told her to rest, as they would be leaving tomorrow. Relieved, Sunhwa asked where they would be going. After a brief silence, Hujin recalled the moment when the second wave was about to start, and the system notification about the safe zone appeared. He opened the additional safe zone menu, which listed Gwanghwamun and the second floor of D Tower. He told her they would be heading to Gwanghwamun. At that moment, he realized something. It seemed Sunhwa couldn't see the additional safe zone destinations. He had never heard of this before, but he understood one thing. Gwanghwamun D Tower was the key point of his tutorial. Into a bag from the convenience store and left immediately. Upon stepping outside, they witnessed the city's gray atmosphere, filled with corpses scattered across the streets. Sunhwa was visibly saddened by the scene. Hujin asked if she was okay, to which she replied yes, but Hujin knew there was no way she was truly all right. The sight was far too brutal for a child of her age, but she was doing her best to stay calm. This was Hujin's first time walking through the destroyed city as well. Corpses lay everywhere, and he hadn't spotted any survivors. He glanced at Sunhwa and instructed her to pay close attention to the ground. Confused, she asked what he meant. He explained she should watch for anything resembling jelly sliding around. Sunhwa didn't fully understand, but then they encountered exactly what Hujin had described, a slime. Hujin unsheathed his sword. He hadn't expected to encounter a slime so soon. They were neutral monsters, typically weak. Even small children could hunt them. With one swift swing of his sword, he killed the slime, earning some EXP and 3 coins. Oddly, the action felt familiar, even though it was his first time. Sunhwa, surprised to see the slime disappear after it was killed, asked Hujin about it. He explained that slimes were the weakest monsters and would frequently appear throughout their journey. That's why they should always stop to kill them, and she needed to remain alert. As they continued, Hujin felt a strange familiarity using the sword, as though he had wielded it for years despite having only used a sword in a virtual dungeon before. Sunhwa soon spotted another slime, and Hujin swiftly killed it. This was the 5th slime they had slain. Sunhwa had become better at detecting enemies than him. Suddenly, a bluish light enveloped Hujin, indicating he had reached level 2. He received 2 bonus stats and 1 random stat bonus for leveling up. Sunhwa noticed the glowing light around him and asked what it meant. Hujin explained that he had leveled up. Confused, she asked what that meant. Hujin further explained that when you kill monsters, you level up and each level makes you stronger. Understanding now, Sunhwa promised she would try her best to level up too. Hujin just stared silently at her. They continued their journey, killing slimes along the way. Hujin's sword movements were becoming more and more skilled, as if he had been training for years. After killing several more slimes, Hujin leveled up again, reaching level 3. His leveling speed was unusually fast, and he had received another random stat bonus. He thought back to the past when he was repeatedly told he had no talent, despite taking several talent tests. Yet now, after returning to the past, his talent seemed to be growing. Hujin wondered if this newfound strength was a sign that he had been an early bloomer all along. It was a possibility. If so, this would be favorable, as he needed to survive and save 1 billion to afford the illness-curing potion that would be released in 3 years and could save his mother. Along their journey to Gwanghwamun Tower, Hujin reached level 5 and unlocked the system's party option. He invited Sunhwa to form a party, and although confused at first, she accepted. Hujin felt that Sunhwa would now be able to progress as well. Suddenly, a notification popped up. The nameless guardian was watching him with interest. Hujin ignored it. Sunhwa shyly thanked him, promising to work hard and help him. She asked him not to leave her behind. Hujin realized she was worried about being abandoned again. Though he was focused on his own survival, he told her he understood and encouraged her to show him her dedication through actions, not words. Despite his rapid progress and the random stat bonuses, Hujin was cautious. Someone dangerous awaited them on the first floor of Gwanghwamun D Tower, and he wasn't sure if he could protect Sunhwa in that battle. He couldn't afford to be overconfident. On their way, Manhwa suddenly pointed out a new monster, a city fox. It was a level 3 neutral monster, usually passive unless provoked. They had to move silently to avoid confrontation. But Manhwa was confused by a provoke notification in her status window. Before they could react, a group of city foxes surrounded her and attacked. Manhwa screamed in pain, though she wasn't severely injured. Hujin was surprised she could use provoke. He quickly attacked the city foxes, targeting their weak spots and killing them swiftly. After the battle, Manhwa was shaken, but Hujin reassured her, asking if she was hurt. Hujin had risen to level 8 after killing the city foxes. Senia appeared and asked what level he was at now. Hujin paused before responding, realizing the intermediate administrator was observing them. He told Senia he had reached level 8. Senia, shocked, verified his level, and even the nameless guardian and other anonymous guardians were impressed by his speed. Hujin opened his status window and was startled by his stats. A level 8 stat line shouldn't look this strong. His growth was highly unusual, but he saw it as an opportunity. He called Manhwa over, telling her they would soon head to Gwangwaman Tower. He warned her that if she didn't follow his instructions, she could die. Manhwa was terrified but reassured when Hujin told her that as long as she listened, she would survive. With that, they continued their journey toward D Tower. Hujin and Manhwa were frequently blocked by city foxes on their way, but with Hujin's steadily increasing stats, he managed to handle them without much trouble. Manhwa, now wearing a pair of worn iron gauntlets that Hujin had given her from one of their hunts, looked more prepared than ever. With their gear in place, the only thing left was to stick to the plan. Hujin invited Manhwa to follow him as they approached Tower D. As they neared the entrance, a system notification appeared in front of them, informing them that it was a tutorial dungeon with a minimum level requirement of 5. Without hesitation, Hujin chose to enter. Suddenly, the world around them transformed into a holographic screen filled with floating numbers, and they were transported inside. As soon as they arrived, they were met by goblins and city foxes lounging at the entrance. Upon spotting the two humans, the goblins wasted no time preparing to attack. Hujin quickly reminded Manhwa of the plan, and she confirmed that she remembered it from the day before. As instructed, they broke up their party, and Manhwa took on the goblins. The goblins, seeing a lone human approaching, charged at her, thinking they had an easy target. However, Manhwa proved them wrong, skillfully defeating the goblins with surprising ease. Unlike the higher-level dungeons where all monsters were aggressive, Tower D had hostile goblins but neutral city foxes. As long as they focused on the goblins first, the city foxes wouldn't attack. Manhwa's performance exceeded Hujin's expectations. She handled the goblins with such precision that their attacks barely made a dent in her defenses. Impressed, Hujin praised Manhwa for her efforts and invited her to take a short rest. She gladly accepted, visibly tired after her battle. Hujin informed her that the mini-boss would appear soon, summoned only after all the goblins and city foxes on the first floor had been eliminated. Once Manhwa had caught her breath, Hujin urged her to continue with the plan. Manhwa nodded and returned to finish off the remaining monsters. As the numbers dwindled, Hujin felt satisfied with their progress. However, a system notification suddenly appeared, announcing that the pause effect had been activated, causing a stir among the guardians. Senia materialized before Hujin and called out to him. Confused, Hujin turned to her, asking if this was indeed the pause function, a rare power that could temporarily disconnect someone from the tutorial field. He had heard it was an expensive item used by intermediate administrators, and now Senia had used it on him. She immediately questioned his sanity, accusing him of acting recklessly. Hujin, feigning ignorance, asked what she meant. Senia explained that the mini-boss he was about to summon was a level 13 goblin warrior, and because it was a mini-boss, it would receive a stat boost, making it stronger than other monsters of the same level. For a level 8 player like Hujin, this would be a nearly impossible fight, especially without additional support. Hujin realized that Senia didn't want him to die, though she tried to hide her concern. He knew her well enough by now to understand that she needed an entertaining spectacle for the Guardians, and Hujin, behaving as if he knew the future, had become a rare and fascinating player for her. Hujin mocked her poor conversational skills, which visibly annoyed Senia. She retorted, asking if he was insulting her, but Hujin brushed it off, stating that he was merely stating the truth. She was failing to manage the situation effectively. Hujin then proposed that if she truly wanted to entertain the Guardians, she should let him go ahead and defeat the Goblin Warrior. He explained that the Guardians would go wild at the sight of a low-level player like him taking down such a powerful mini-boss. He suggested that they strike a deal. If he could succeed, Senia would owe him for providing such a spectacular show. Senia was clearly irritated by his boldness, but couldn't entirely dismiss the opportunity. After a brief silence, she asked what kind of deal he had in mind. Hujin, seeing that he had finally piqued her interest, grew serious. Once the pause effect wore off, he and Manhwa resumed their hunt, leveling up even further. Manhwa's level had now reached 7 after defeating a number of monsters. With the remaining monsters cleared, Manhwa reported back to Hujin, who told her to stay close. The system notification reappeared, signaling that the conditions for the Goblin Warrior mini-boss to appear had been met. Suddenly, the Goblin Warrior materialized along with his minions, and the mini-boss zone was declared. Hujin and Manhwa quickly hid as the towering goblin surveyed his surroundings. The Goblin Warrior, sensing their presence, hurled his spear toward them. Fortunately, they were protected by a nearby ATM machine, which absorbed the brunt of the attack. Hujin reminded himself that the Goblin Warrior's most dangerous ability was its spear-throwing skill, which they had just barely dodged. He urged Manhwa to stand and prepare for battle. Reforming their party, Hoojin's back at Senya, who stood behind him. He smirked and told her to pay close attention. This is how a low-level player defeats a mini-boss. That's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next part. See you in the next one.